Star Wars Visions is one of the coolest things to come out in a while, and the fact that it's detached from the greater Star Wars canon somehow makes the show even better. While each story firmly plants itself adjacent to the events of actual Star Wars canon, its soft connections to those events allow each story to breathe, allow for stylistic interpretation of the source material, and ultimately allow each studio to create something wholly new. Even amongst each episode, there's no reason to believe these stories exist within the same universe, only that they each inhabit an offshoot of the Star Wars setting. Thus, placing it on our canon timeline that we've been working on in the Timeline Journal series is a pointless endeavor. But creating a timeline or chronological viewing order based on the individual episodes is not only doable, but worthwhile. And in so doing, by watching these disparate stories of Jedi and Sith throughout the ages in chronological order, it turns the 9 episodes into an overarching history that thematically weaves light and dark in equal measure, ending on a new hope for the galaxy. In this video, we'll show you where we think each episode takes place on the Visions timeline, and how we came to that conclusion based on clues from within each story. Please note though, there are many anachronisms in each story that can make the interpretation of time or time periods difficult, such as in the Duel, Akakiri, and TOB1. Anachronisms are things that don't belong to the time period a story is set in. But weighing what we know happens in the actual canon timeline versus what we know happens in other Vision stories is highly telling. I'm suggesting that there is no definitive timeline of events for the show because of said anachronisms and because Star Wars is like a song that repeats itself generation after generation, but you can fit pieces where you feel they are best placed on the timeline puzzle. And that's exactly what we're going to do today, and I promise you that by watching it in this order, you'll feel the spirit of these stories is more connected than ever, and the themes are more profound. Akakiri is the story of a Jedi named Tsubaki returning to a planet after 5 years to help a princess he once loved reclaim her usurped throne, only to find it taken by Masago, the king's sister. We believe this episode occurs earliest on the timeline, and the feudal Japanese setting is a big clue as to its placement, but it's not the biggest. The lightsabers featured all look like swords, not dissimilar to the darksaber. This could be stylistic, and it certainly is, but it could also be interpreted as an ancient style of saber from a similar time to when the darksaber was created. Note that there doesn't appear to be any rule of 2 system going on here, and there's no implication in this episode that the Sith or other darkside users are in any way rare. Lastly, this is the only episode without any droids. Yes, technology exists and is featured, but the notable lack of any sentient droids is telling. There are also no blasters or other energy-based projectile weapons involved. There are anachronisms, however, like the B-Wing starfighter that Tsubaki flies in on, which was something that began use on the canon timeline around the Galactic Civil War. But overall, the story neither looks nor feels like it belongs anywhere near or after that point. This appears to go back very far in the Star Wars timeline, perhaps even before the Republic, and highlights the steady proliferation of darkside users across the galaxy, and how the Sith began rebelling from the Jedi path. The Duel follows this thread beautifully. Bandits raid an unnamed village led by a vicious Sith, and they begin taking and killing all they choose. A mysterious Ronin takes her on Sith. They are part of the last remnant of the Sith Rebellion. Rebellion from the Jedi most likely, and the Ronin has taken it upon himself to hunt them down. The galaxy seems far more technologically mature as well. Droids are present, and so are many types of blasters. I've seen some theories suggesting this exists during the 100-Year Darkness, a period where the Sith rebelled from the Jedi, and if this is the remnant of that, maybe this is near the end of that 100-year period. We see there's clearly no rule of 2 here as well, so we can rule out anything near the Skywalker saga. There are many anachronisms in this though, the biggest being the repurposed Stormtrooper helmets. Could this take place post-Empire? Sure, but it's unlikely this is anything more than just a stylistic decision to keep the bad guys looking like they belong in a Star Wars setting. The great through line between the Duel and our next chronological placement is the beginning of the fall of the Sith. The Elder follows a Master and Padawan duo several hundred years before the prequel trilogy, following a disturbance in the Force on a planet in the Outer Rim. After splitting up in search of the elderly man terrorizing a small village, the Padawan stumbles across the old man. The most telling hint as to where this occurs is the fact that they claim the Sith haven't been around in hundreds of years, which leads me to assume this occurs before the High Republic period. Let me explain. In the prequels, it's been about 1,000 years since the Sith were seen, and the High Republic period was about 200 years before the prequels. If this were the High Republic period, the Jedi would likely say something like it's been almost 1,000 years since the Sith were gone, but instead they say it's only been hundreds. But the Jedi robes they wear is quite similar to the High Republic garb that is indicative of that time period. When Dan asks the man if he's Sith, he denies it and claims,
"The Sith became far too obsessed with trying to outwit each other. It resulted in them completely neglecting their destiny. And so they are now extinct."
This shares the fascinating connection to the previous story, which showed exactly that, Sith outwitting each other. Because of that, it bought the Jedi 1,000 years of peace before the Sith returned with their rule of two firmly established, ended the Clone Wars, and brought about the First Galactic Empire. The village bride follows shortly after the Jedi Purge, as a helmeted man named Vaughn and a woman named F observe a wedding ritual play out across several days. The bride Haru volunteered herself as sacrifice to several bandits, who were using abandoned separatist droids and weaponry in exchange for keeping the village safe. Considering the setting places this post-separatist defeat, and with a Jedi character freshly on the run, this clearly takes place shortly after the Galactic Empire took control of the galaxy. Vaughn even tells her the Galactic Empire won't catch her here. We know this is shortly after said events because F still has her Padawan braid, or at least did before her self-appointed ascension to knighthood. Along with the Galactic Empire taking control, we see the galactic scene begin its slow descent into organized chaos. Bandits, gangs, and cartels fill the void left by the Republic, at least in places left untouched by the Galactic Empire. Tatooine Rhapsody comes shortly thereafter, several years after the Jedi Purge, conceivably. A Padawan named Jay is on the run and is taken in by a Hutt named Geezer to join his band, Star Waver, and in that time, they gain a small following and become quite skilled musicians. The Hutt cartel is extending their grasp of power in the system, likely thanks to the lack of Republic interference. And in so doing, Jabba hunts down Geezer because he won't join the rest of the Hutts. He is to be executed unless his fellow bandmates can get him out. Considering the fact that Boba Fett is now employed by Jabba, and significant time has elapsed since Jay wore his Padawan braid, it's safe to conclude that this occurs after the Village Bride. Again, these are all standalone stories, but together they weave a bigger picture, and while the Empire may not be present physically on a world like Tatooine, they occupy many worlds throughout the galaxy. Which is what we see on the planet Tau in Lop and Ochō, our next story chronologically. Lop is a Lepi slave laborer for the Empire until she is adopted by Yasaburo and his daughter Ochō. This first part of the story occurs at least several years into the Empire's reign of the galaxy, as their domineering quality over worlds like Tau is clearly seen at the episode's outset. 7 years later, as rebellions begin springing up as we draw closer to the Galactic Civil War, Ochō sides with the Empire over her father's wishes, leaving Yasaburo and Lop to face her head-on. The galaxy is beginning its rebellion against the Empire, and eventually, they defeat them. That is, until the First Order spring up several decades later. And while the First Order is on the run after the events of the sequel trilogy, we get the events of the Twins. The remnant of the First Order raises two Force users named and Kare to be the new driving force behind their Gemini-class Star Destroyer and Kyber-powered superweapon, though Kare rebels just before their plan comes to fruition. We know this story occurs post-sequel trilogy, as that's where this story was billed as occurring according to its creators. But it also references both the Empire and the Republic existing concurrently, and this doesn't happen at any point prior to the sequel trilogy, wherein the First Order takes back control for the once great Empire. How long this back and forth between good and evil, Sith and Jedi, Republic and Empire lasts? We don't know, but the last two stories hint at an ongoing struggle. TOB1 is my next placement, and here's where I'm definitely going to have some people scratching their heads, but just bear with me for a moment as I explain why I believe this takes place here instead of far earlier on the timeline. The story follows an elderly droid maker and his Pinocchio-esque droid T0B1, who dreams of becoming a Jedi. TOB-1 activates a signal which calls an Inquisitor, who kills his master, but in so doing he realizes he has what it takes to become a Jedi inside him. Inquisitors, or Force-sensitive Jedi hunters, were introduced to wipe out any Jedi on the run or in hiding during the Empire's reign, so this would seemingly occur during that time, except for a few major points of interest in this short. The first are the inclusion of the carvings on the walls of the home, which depict the wars of the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. And if this occurs after the original trilogy, it can't be during the First Galactic Empire's reign. Secondly is the fact that TOB-1 is so profoundly high-tech. He can dream. He is Force-sensitive. He's far more advanced, seemingly, than anything we've seen even in the sequel trilogy. Both of these points to note that this story occurs at a later time, a time where Inquisitors are brought back to do the work that the First Empire employed them for. And incredibly, our final story in this chronological order also deals with Force-sensitive Jedi hunters.
Many generations have passed since the light of the Jedi protected the galaxy. Since then, an era of war has arisen.
The Ninth Jedi follows many generations, possibly hundreds of years after the likes of Luke and Rey in the sequel trilogy. Since then, even lightsabers have left the galaxy, it seems. Margrave Juro has a plan to bring them back though, and to reinstate the Jedi Order. He has invited a number of Jedi to his planet of High Islam, and has devised a way of determining a Force user's connection to the Force by the color a lightsaber will emit for them. This unveils the many Jedi hunters in their midst. While not outright called Inquisitors, their MO is much the same. For this future to pan out, it requires the fall of the Jedi once again, after Rey presumably starts it up after the rise of Skywalker, which may help place the second Inquisition we see develop in TOB-1. What I love about this placement is that it ends on a new hope for the galaxy. Lightsabers are back, Jedi are back, and they're gonna hunt down some dark side users and bring light back to the galaxy. In this order, we've seen the fall to the dark side, the fall of the dark side, the 1,000-year peace thereafter, the rise of the Galactic Empire, the strengthening of the cartels, the beginnings of the rebellion, the new threats from the First Order, the effects of a possible second Jedi Purge, and a new hope for the galaxy far, far away after an era of war. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you choose to watch these shorts in this order, let me know if you appreciated the stories any more or less. Please like and subscribe if you'd like more content like this, and comment your thoughts below. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.